Welcome back to Winners and Losers, everybody. Chris Hamill is in the hot seat. I'm back from Budapest. Let's get straight into the winners, and they're extremely fortunate to have been included, in my opinion.
Really good to have you back.
Thanks very much, mate.
Just
good
thought
to
I'd start
be back.
with that. And yes,
But
almost like a Tottenham fan wrote this section.
Yeah.
Danny Pape, FDFC's most prolific striker, has put Spurs along with Joshua M50332 for 1-4. That is his home phone number. Ring him also to let him know how displeased you are with Spurs being the opening team in this section. But yeah, 10 men, Tottenham securing a huge 2-1 victory over Southampton following a dreadful start to the season. It's got to be said, recent defeats to Leicester and Colchester did make this game an absolute must-win. So I suppose, given the complexion of how things have gone in the first 7 games, this warrants talking about a little bit. Tanguy Ndombele giving the hosts the lead with his second goal for the club. He's now scored more goals for Tottenham in his first 5 Premier League appearances than he managed in 69 league and games for Amiens and Lyon combined. But he's gone for a little evolution as a player, from that deep line playmaker to a true box-to-box midfielder, and he's adjusted to life really well in the Premier League, hasn't he? Go on, you want to say something?
Massive deflection, so it always helps, doesn't it?
All right, well, you know, they all count, don't they? They all bloody count. Anyway, the home side were in control until Serge Aurier was dismissed. Shock horror. He was the man. Shock. He was the man that departed. Second yellow in the 31st minute. Second yellow, harsh. First yellow, stupid. Graham Scott gave him his marching orders. Yeah. And the less said about that incident, the better, really.
The less said about the refereeing display on the weekend. Graham Scott was horrific throughout the game for both sides. As soon as that decision went wrong, because obviously the ball went out, he lost the plot. The Spurs fans were onto him the entire game.
His head has come clean off his shoulders.
Shambles.
A little bit like Hugo Lloris trying to do a little drag back on Danny Ings, and he stuck his tiny little legs in there. Shout out to people with small legs. What a comical turn that was from the goalkeeper. However, he did keep them in the game afterwards, which is classic Lloris. Yeah. An absolute clanger, and then some awesome reaction saves. That was Danny Ings' second goal of the season, by the by. Spurs responding almost immediately with a superb counter-attacking goal. It's got to be said, Harry Kane scoring in his 6th consecutive game against the Saints. He's the demon when it comes to playing the Saints, isn't he? Lily Whites did have their back to the wall for most of this game. Who calls them the Lily Whites, by the way? People in the 1940s, that's who. No one calls them the Lily Whites anymore. They held on to take all 3 points. Pochettino was very pleased with the spirit in his side, because not supposed to be a very harmonious camp, is it? Let's see what he said.
We saw great spirit, fight together in a difficult situation. We scored with 10 men, and that is speak very highly about my players. I'm very happy with the effort, with the spirit, and I think that is the way that we need to take and keep going and being consistent.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Southampton as well, because they were extremely unfortunate not to get at least a point out of this game. Probably should have been coming away with all 3 points. Tottenham were, again, very poor, totally dominated by Southampton. And this was a Southampton side that saw 60% of the ball, outshot Tottenham throughout, created way better openings throughout the game. If they actually had a goal scorer, they'd have won this game.
They've been a bit unfortunate at the start of the season, haven't they?
Yeah, Danny Ings looks like he's lost 10 yards of pace at the start of the season.
He's on minus yards of pace.
I thought Nathan Redmond was really, really good. Sofiane Boufal, not quite at the races,
15 dribbles, 0 chances
unfortunately. The midfield, again, looked good. Højbjerg and Oriol Romeu as well. But overall, Tottenham really struggled, particularly.
They've got a good core, haven't they, Southampton? A good core.
They have. I mean, I think XG had the score down as sort of 1.2, 1.2, which I don't think tells a true story for this one, because there was a lot of times where Southampton got to the byline, put it across the box or across the 6-yard box, and Danny Ings was a millimetre from scoring. Of course,
not accounting for chances
count.
Created. Don't let Van Straten hear you say that.
Yeah,
he'll fight you in the office.
Yeah, because of course it doesn't count. There were some positives. You talked about Hugo Lloris kind of turning it around after that howling mistake. He kept them in the game. One amazing save from, I think it was a Bednarak header from a corner, and of course that James Ward-Prowse free kick, which he somehow managed to claw out the top corner. And Ndombele, yet again, Spurs' best midfielder. Moussa Sissoko had to shift into that right-back role once Serge Aurier was sent off. He's done that a couple of times already this season anyway. He put in 3 blocks, 2 tackles, 5 clearances. Going forward, I thought it was a bit of a struggle for Tottenham. They looked a lot better when Eric Lamela was on the pitch. He gave them way more energy. Heung-min Son is crucial to getting in behind, but when they're playing a deep block, I don't think it quite works having him and Lucas Moura on the pitch. That's probably why Moura was left on the bench. 3 key passes for Son though, 3 dribbles and 4 tackles as well. I think Southampton could come away from this game pretty positive. And I think for Tottenham, given the horrible week they've had, they had to get a result here because obviously the Colchester and Leicester shambles, if they'd have lost to Southampton at home, the fans were already on the club's back. As soon as I walked in the stadium on the weekend, everybody was nervous. 5 minutes in, Eriksen misplaced 2 passes, the fans were booing him. So
he's not had a good week, has he?
I think it's a bit of a tough time to be a Spurs fan, but Saints can take some positivity. They just need to get a striker in because Che Adams, I don't know if he's injured or benched, what's happened to him, and Danny Ings looks like he's running backwards.
One of my tips for the season, Che Adams. Anyway.
Yeah, anyway.
Che Adams, I think.
Champions League, Bayern Munich they've got, haven't they? Midweek, Tottenham, so they need to turn up for that one.
And we are doing a Champions League midweek stream on Euro Football Daily, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Let's move on to our first losers. Before we delve into Newcastle, if you're not subscribed to Football Daily, then click the subscribe button as displayed on screen now and turn notifications on. This suggestion comes from Antonio Mango. What a handle. Well done, sir. And it's Newcastle, like I said. What happened to the Magpies?
Oh dear, the Magpies got a thumping at the hands of Leicester, of course, losing 5-0 at the King Power.
Come on, you Foxes.
This was, of course, the Foxes' largest margin of victory since 1987. Which is a long old time ago. That was against Sheffield Wednesday, 6-1. And it was also Steve Bruce's joint heaviest ever Premier League defeat margin. I think he lost 7-2 against Chelsea in 2010, and I think he's been beaten 5-0 by Man City in the past as well. Both of them were at Sunderland. So not having a good time in the North East. But wasn't helped, was he, by that Isaac Hayden tackle. 1-0 down, you're thinking just get into half-time at 1-0, recoup. Isaac Hayden flies in, saw dinosaurs on Twitter saying, oh, it's a great tackle. And yes, he wins the ball, but it's the follow-through which catches Pryor mid-shin, could have broken his leg.
Yeah, it turned his leg into a boomerang, didn't it?
Yeah, not a pretty tackle for Isaac Hayden, kind of remonstrating with the ref as well. Dennis Pryor, lucky to get away without an injury. That was Newcastle's 27th red card as well since 2012. That's way more than any other club. And given that they've been out of the league for a year, is a bit of a problem.
That's impressive.
Wasn't helped either by some terrible Dubravka goalkeeping in the game. No way he should be beaten at his near post like that. Wasn't helped by some even worse defending. To be fair to the defence, I think once Hayden was off, they had little to no cover in front of them. There was no shield for them whatsoever. They've got a -9 goal difference already. We're only 7 games into the season, and they're on 5 points. Admittedly, though, that is more than Rafa had at this stage last season.
Yes.
So, not been pretty for Newcastle, and Bruce was pulling no punches after the game.
It was, okay, the red card changes the game, but after that you need to show a little bit more desire and a bit more hunger and a bit more spirit amongst you. Yes, the second goal's a mistake and the third goal's a wicked deflection, and then it is a tough afternoon. And that's when you need to see what you've got. When things are gone against you. And certainly we didn't do enough. It was one of them horror shows.
Yes, goals from the excellent Ricardo Pereira and Didi and a brace from Vardy, compounding Brucey's misery. Vardy's now scored 10 Premier League goals at the King Power in 2019. Only Mane on 14 and Aguero on 12 have scored more at their respective home grounds.
He's on flames.
Resurgence under Brendan Rodgers, hasn't he? In fact, since the Northern Irishman took over, Vardy has scored the most Premier League goals with 14 in 17 games.
He's flying, isn't he?
JV9. In that same time frame, Leicester have taken 31 points in the Premier League, with only Liverpool and Manchester City taking more, which begs the question. A lot of people have been putting forward the hypothesis that Brendan Rodgers is perhaps a top 4 manager.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people on Twitter as well saying that they'll make the top 4 this season. They stand a great chance, not going to lie. Man United are all over the gaff. Arsenal, seriously shambolic defensively. They'll obviously keep a clean sheet at Old Trafford, now I've said that. But also Tottenham in a bit of disarray. Chelsea, hit and miss, trying to blood those youngsters. So this is a great chance of getting in the top 4. I don't think they'll do it. I think Arsenal, once they've got Bellerin and Tierney back, will solidify, and Holding, of course. And I think Tottenham have to find some rhythm at some stage. But this is a great chance to finish top 4.
Yeah,
If I was a Leicester fan, I'd be thinking, we should be doing this.
Particularly with their home form. I think top 6 is still very realistic. Top 4 is extremely ambitious. They are one injury away, particularly to Jamie Vardy, to becoming a vastly inferior attacking side, although I still maintain their midfield is probably top 4. It's probably Champions League status. They've only lost 1 of their 9 home games in the Premier League, which came against Newcastle. I think Perez scored in that game. They went out and bought Perez. Not at the best start to the season. RB Barnes started this game, which is good to see as well. Some standout performances in this game, though. Ndidi, man of the match, is picking up a habit of doing this now, isn't he? 9 tackles, 5 interceptions, a 92% pass accuracy, 1 key pass, 1 shot and 1 goal, which he took really well.
Yeah.
And last season, the season before, when he was shooting, it was often from wild positions outside of the box. Rash is adding a bit of coolness in front of goal to his game, and long may it continues becoming one of the most well-rounded midfielders in the Premier League. Talking of well-rounded, King Sionku, the young Turk, is absolutely murdering the Premier League. He's better than Harry Maguire after 7 games. There, I said it. I said it in his head. Looks like a shield. How are you going to get past that? Okay, 5 tackles and interceptions, 3 interceptions in the opposition half as well. He's like Otamendi, but he actually wins the ball in the opposition half.
To be fair, it does help when no Newcastle player can pass.
I mean, yeah. Context
It's
is
like
king.
passing to the camera here. It is the passing channel. I'm passing over here, so Yunku's got an interception.
That is true. A 99% pass accuracy, missing 1 out of 82. Look forward to seeing him play at City in 18 months' time when they buy him for £100 million. The 1.82 to 0.05 expected goals in Leicester's favour, obviously, may be a little bit flattering. However, I mean, Michael Brighton came on after like 70 minutes, created 3 or 4 chances, got 1 assist. Leicester were having an absolute field day
and then
in the last
Maddison.
20 minutes.
This was without Maddison, who's probably their best player.
The best creator, one of the best creators in the Premier League, full stop. It doesn't get better than Newcastle in their next fixtures. Manchester United at home and Chelsea away.
United like Juventus. Don't worry about that.
Leicester have Liverpool, which it is away from home, so I am interested to see how they set up, because they have been a little bit conservative when playing top 4 sides. They were against Chelsea, they were against Manchester United. I think they probably, after the United game, they probably undersold themselves. Bit of a lack of ambition. They didn't really go for it. They went for it in the second half at Stamford Bridge and managed to salvage a point. Probably could have had all 3. So it'd be interesting to see how they set up against Liverpool. I think that will give us a real good reflection of if they're a top 4 side or not, because, you know, this is Newcastle. Let's not get carried away. And then they've got Burnley after that, so they'll stick 7 past them.
Tough game, I think, Burnley. But
yeah, probably being a bit disrespectful there, but let's move on.
Moving on to our second and final winner. It's suggested by Rachel 7000, and it's Chelsea.
Yes, Super Frankie Lampard finally has a home victory at Stamford Bridge at the 4th attempt of trying. A very comfortable 2-0 victory over Graham Potter's Brighton, lifting his side to 6th in the table. Only 3 points behind Leicester now, starting to put together some decent consistency, aren't they? So having conceded 13 goals in 6 games prior to this, a big goal which was only topped by Norwich and Watford, the Blues legend will be delighted that Chelsea have finally kept a clean sheet. First time in 9 attempts. So they came flying out of the traps in this game. 17 shots in the first half. 17. For perspective, that's how much they've probably been averaging per 90 this term. But didn't have anything to show for it until a Jorginho penalty. And he took the penalty despite club penalty taker Ross Barkley being on the pitch. So
no way.
Slight paradigm shift there. Webster bringing down Mount to win that. And Willian's first Premier League goal since January. He cannot catch a break with the Chelsea fans, can he? That's his first goal in 17 games, saw them home. Now, in the interim period, the Brazilian has actually taken 32 shots. So you can see why he sometimes rubs the Blues faithful up the wrong way.
From an average distance of 32 yards as well.
Yeah, a little bit Coutinho-esque. But Jorginho now has 2 in 9, the same as his haul in the previous 54 games, or 54 games from last season. It was a richly deserved victory. They had 23 shots, 9 coming on target, only conceding 8 in reply. Brighton only putting 1 on target. That is ugly, isn't it? Expected goals had this down at 4.3 to 0.6, so probably could have had a couple more. And as a result of this impressive attacking display, only Manchester City are averaging more shots, Joseph, than Chelsea this term, and we had doubts. I had doubts about their attacking prowess. But, you know, Mason Mount has turned into an absolute weapon.
Yes, they have turned it around, but for Brighton, it is problem times. Obviously, got rid of Houghton because the results weren't going the right way. Bought in Graham Potter, who we are quite a big fan of here at Football Daily. But it's all going wrong, isn't it? They haven't won since that opening day 3-0 victory away at Watford, who themselves are an absolute shambles. Played 6, drawn 3, lost 3. They've won 1 of their last 16 Premier League games. They've only scored 5 goals this season, which I think is the worst in the entire league. No, actually the 3rd worst in the entire league. Newcastle and Watford got 4. So it's pretty close. Only 2 outfield players for Brighton have scored goals this season, given that they sold Andone, didn't they, to Galatasaray. This is the 34th time they failed to score since joining the Premier League in 2017-18. Their striking has not been good enough. Get Glenn Murray back in the team is what the dinosaurs are saying.
Go
kick
long!
It long. Houghton, Styler, just all over the place. Absolutely all over the place in every area of the pitch. But let's just finish on Chelsea because this is a winners section. Jorginho, like you said, putting up really, really good performance. I actually think he's better under Lampard than he was under Sarri. I think he's been used in a slightly different way and he just looks a much more complete player. 90% pass accuracy here, 6 tackles and interceptions, 3 key passes, 2 shots, 1 goal. Willian as well, despite the fact Chelsea fans hate him, and partly rightly so. I don't think he'll keep his place as soon as Hudson-Odoi's back fit and firing every game. I think he'll be back. And Pulisic will find his feet eventually. It's just a period of adaptation. I think he needs to put on a little bit of muscle and he'll be a whole different calibre of player. But yeah, Willian in this game, 5 tackles and interceptions, 1 key pass, 6 shots, which is probably the reason that Chelsea fans aren't the biggest fan. 6 shots, 1 goal. Next up for the Blues, I think they've got Lille away in the Champions League. Need to get that win because they haven't won the Champions League since 2017 against Karabakh.
Lost at home, didn't they? Carrier bag.
And that was a terrible, terrible result against Valencia at home with Rodrigo scoring. And I said in the pod 2 weeks ago, I think they'll lose to Lille. So they're in a good run of form and need to win midweek to sustain that Champions League push.
But will they? Vote in the poll. Just a poll. Last but not least then, it's Sheffield United in our losers section, which is extremely harsh, but at Tamish Bahal doesn't care. He's put them in there.
Yes.
So we have rolled with it. Go on.
Very harsh, very harsh. And it kind of came down to one incident this game, of course, that Dean, Henderson, howler. But Liverpool in the process did make it 7 wins from 7 games. The howler from Dean Henderson, though, we have to kind of caveat with, he's having a great season. Sheffield United fans love him. He was actually really good throughout the game. He made some big, big saves, but one big moment, Liverpool's first shot on target, just had to happen.
Under the legs.
Liverpool and goalkeeping errors just go together, don't they? Like biscuits and tea, mate. It just happens all the time for them. But let's talk about the game because this was Sheffield United's 2nd loss in the week. They, of course, went out of the EFL Cup to Sunderland midweek, which Dougie Critchley was very happy about, and comes off the back of a really good performance and win away at Goodison Park, where Marco Silva himself is on the chopping block this week. Sheffield United just made a few too many errors, really, and you just can't afford to make errors against Liverpool. They will punish you. 4 on the day, 3 of which led to shots. More errors than in all of the other Premier League fixtures combined, which pretty much sums up Sheffield United's day. And that was despite some really good performances from the likes of John Egan, who completed 5 aerial duels, 5 clearances, 3 tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 block. The game plan was clearly to go direct, and it so nearly worked. 1 in 4 of Sheffield United's passes were long. Van Dijk won 11 aerial duels. Big boy. Big boy. And Klopp, he was basically saying the game deserved to be a draw.
Unlucky for Sheffield United, for sure. So if it would have been a draw, I would sit here and say that's how it was today. That's what Sheffield deserved. That's what we deserved. I don't think we would have deserved to lose. But the draw was there. We don't use chances.
But it wasn't a draw, and like you said, Joseph, Liverpool have made it 7 from 7 now. Only the 2nd time in the club's history that they've done so, the last time being in 1990-91, where they won 8 on the bounce. So let's see if Liverpool can set a new club record. And you know what? Jurgen Klopp, such a gentleman, would not begrudge him the trophy. Would love to see the Premier League trophy reflected in his teeth as the big German Labrador lifts it come May. Disgusted with that. Don't mind it whatsoever. Only the second team in the Premier League to do so after Chelsea actually won, I think, their first 9 in 2005-2006 under Jose Mourinho. So still some way to go to be the best in PL history. And they were far from their prolific best in this game, maybe fortunate, like you've mentioned, to escape with all 3 points. Firmino not taking a single shot in this game prior to this away trip to Bramall Lane was averaging over 4 per 90. So that really emphasises how they limited that forward line. In total, only had 4 shots on target from 16 efforts, which is down by around a third from their usual Premier League output. But the chances they did create, enough to put daylight between them and Sheffield United. We say that Sheffield United were unlucky, but Mane missed a sitter from a Virgil van Dijk long ball in the opening stages. He also hit the post. They should have had a penalty from a Lundstrom foul. XG put it at 2.4 to 1.2. So while Sheffield United were competitive and they did have a decent game plan, Liverpool's forwards a little bit off colour, but still in the right places at the right time. Fabinho, probably the most influential player in Liverpool's setup, and he's just becoming Mr. Consistency, isn't he? So 6 tackles and interceptions, laying on 1 chance from that deep position in midfield. Subsequently, Bramall Lane, this is probably the most out there stat we've managed to gather this week, becomes the 56th Premier League venue Liverpool have won at least 4 more than any other club in the competition. Can you name the only 2 they haven't won at? That is some prime Stat Wars trivia for you, my friends. If you can, Joe will follow you on every social platform. Look how excited he is about the prospect of that. You almost went a full episode without yawning, which is really rare for you on a Monday morning. But what else is, content that will keep people more stimulated than you are right now?
Well, of course, we have the football social tonight. If you're looking forward to the big Monday night football between Manchester United and Arsenal, like I am, it's me, it's Dave Jackson, it's John O'Shea.
Might not be.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. We'll see if he
thought it was
turns
John
up.
O'Shea.
Yeah, we'll see though, because footballers.
I just hope it's another Man United fan.
Yeah, you never know, do you? You never know.
It's got to be 2 versus 1 because Jackson's so loud in the studio, man. He's screaming and screeching and chucking things about. Tune in for that. Anyway, 7:45. We're on air.